Well, no, I would say it was a gradual thing, as it probably is with most people. It's an unusual choice of occupation for a sort of centrally placed male American. You know, when you're out there in New Jersey, you don't suddenly pop up in the middle of your football practice and say, yes, I'm going to be an actor. You don't, it doesn't.
For over half a century, Jack Nicholson defined what it meant to be a Hollywood legend. He was the man with the wicked grin, the rebel spirit, and the acting genius that could light up or darken any screen. But today, behind the guarded walls of his Los Angeles mansion, the man who once ruled Hollywood has vanished into silence. Away from cameras, red carpets, and roaring applause, Nicholson now lives a life very few have seen. A life of quiet reflection, fading memories, and fragile peace. The same eyes that once commanded the screen now gaze upon the Hollywood hills in solitude. What really happened to Jack Nicholson? Why did the most celebrated actor of his generation suddenly disappear from public life? This is the untold story of Jack Nicholson's final days. A private look into the fading light of a legend. The rise of a Hollywood legend. Long before the mystery began, Jack Nicholson was the heartbeat of American cinema. Born in 1937 in Neptune City, New Jersey, Nicholson grew up with a wild imagination and a love for the dramatic. When he arrived in Hollywood in the 1950s, few believed the quiet young man working at MGM's animation department would become one of the most electrifying actors of all time. His early struggles paid off in 1969, when Easy Rider changed everything. Nicholson's brief but unforgettable role as the alcoholic lawyer catapulted him to stardom. 5 easy pieces. One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. The Shining, Chinatown, Batman, As Good as It Gets.
Here I am, one of my heroes, and I said, Jack, I said 5 easy pieces, The Shining, Last Detail, Carnal Knowledge, King of Marvin Gardens. And you know, he's sitting there and we're in this private plane, it's humming and everything like this. And I'm like this young kid, and he looked at me and goes, like I've always said, kid, I don't make movies, I make classics.
Each performance was iconic, layered, unforgettable. With 3 Oscars and a dozen nominations, he became the most nominated male actor in Academy Award history. But beyond the trophies, there was something magnetic about Jack. He wasn't just a performer, he was a presence. Charisma radiated off him. That mischievous grin, the tilted sunglasses, the sharp humor that could charm or intimidate anyone in the room. Jack Nicholson wasn't just Hollywood royalty. He was Hollywood. Fame, excess, and the hidden battles. But beneath the laughter and late nights, fame came with a heavy cost. Jack Nicholson's charm and intensity hid years of emotional strain. He was known for his wild parties, fast cars, and endless social circle of stars, from Warren Beatty to Marlon Brando. Yet behind the glamorous facade was a man who often wrestled with loneliness. He lived next door to Brando for decades, and when Brando passed in 2004, Jack admitted it broke something inside him. "It's hard to be the last man standing," he once said quietly. His relationships, many passionate, some turbulent, reflected the difficulty of balancing stardom with intimacy. Though he never married, he fathered several children and remained deeply connected to them. Still, those who knew him best said Jack often hid his pain behind that famous grin. The industry labeled him a playboy, but close friends described him as deeply introspective, a man aware that fame can devour you if you're not careful. The fast life, the spotlight, and the loss of many close friends slowly began to weigh on him. Hollywood had been his kingdom, but it was also becoming his cage. The gradual disappearance. In the early 2000s, fans began noticing something strange. Jack Nicholson was no longer everywhere. The man who once sat courtside at every Lakers game, attended every award show, and was always surrounded by laughter, suddenly stopped appearing. By 2013, whispers began to spread across Hollywood. Had Jack Nicholson retired? Was he ill? Reports claimed that Nicholson was struggling with memory loss, possibly linked to dementia, though he never confirmed it publicly. Insiders suggested he found it increasingly difficult to memorize scripts, something unimaginable for the man who once embodied the sharpest characters in cinema. Rather than announce a dramatic farewell, Jack simply faded away. He turned down offers, withdrew from projects, and quietly retreated to his home high above Mulholland Drive, a mansion overlooking the city he helped define. There, surrounded by photographs, film posters, and decades of memories, Nicholson began a life of seclusion. Occasional sightings showed him older, heavier, quieter. His once lively smile replaced with something gentler, distant, thoughtful. For a man who thrived on human connection, isolation wasn't easy. But as the years passed, he seemed to accept it, as though he'd made peace with the idea that his time in the spotlight had run its course. Inside Jack Nicholson's final days. Today, Jack Nicholson lives a life very different from the one the world remembers. He rarely leaves his home, preferring the comfort of familiar walls and the company of family. His children, especially his daughter Lorraine, visit him regularly. Friends who've been allowed inside say his days are quiet, filled with old films, music, and long hours of reflection. He spends time gazing out at Los Angeles, the same city that watched him rise and now quietly watches him fade.
How's your mother?
She's on her way out.
You all are. Act accordingly.
When I did The Departed, I was sitting with Jack Nicholson, and he was reworking some of the lines. Just a little thing. Martin Scorsese went to the bathroom, and it was just Jack and I, and Jack said,
"You know, I never would've made it this far in my career if I wasn't a great fucking writer."
and I remember thinking, of course you're a great writer. How do you have a 40-year career, even if you're not credited, if you can't write? Unless you have an eye for material, which means like making small adjustments here and there, like of course you can write.
The home he once shared with friends and fellow stars is now a sanctuary of solitude. He's said to still enjoy the occasional conversation about film, art, and sports, though his energy is not what it once was. Neighbors have occasionally spotted him on his balcony during sunsets, dressed comfortably, sometimes waving politely to passers-by who recognize him. Those moments have become rare glimpses of a man who once commanded entire arenas of attention. Insiders describe his health as fragile but stable. His mind drifts between clarity and confusion. Yet, even in frailty, there's a quiet dignity about him. He's aware of his legacy, of what he's leaving behind. One close source revealed, "Jack knows he's lived more life than most could dream of. He's at peace with it." It's a haunting image, the king of Hollywood, now living his twilight years in stillness. But it's also strangely poetic. A man who gave so much to the world finally taking time to exist beyond it. The legacy that refuses to fade. Even in his absence, Jack Nicholson's presence in Hollywood is everywhere. His films are studied, quoted, and celebrated. Every generation discovers him anew. The madness of The Shining, the cool of Chinatown, the pain and charm of As Good as It Gets. You can see his influence in countless modern actors: Leonardo DiCaprio, Christian Bale, Joaquin Phoenix, all citing Nicholson as their blueprint for emotional truth. Directors still reference his performances as the gold standard for raw authenticity. And though he hasn't acted in over a decade, his name still trends whenever an old clip resurfaces. His smile, that unmistakable laugh, the iconic "Here's Johnny." These are more than movie moments. They're pieces of cinematic history. Jack Nicholson's legend will never die because he gave us characters that live in every emotion we've ever felt. Rage, love, madness, vulnerability. The man may have stepped away, but his spirit remains etched into Hollywood forever. And so, in the quiet hills of Los Angeles, as the sun sets over the city of dreams, Jack Nicholson sits surrounded by memories of a life that redefined cinema. Once the wildest man in Hollywood, now the quietest. His silence speaks louder than applause ever could. Maybe that's the true measure of greatness, knowing when to leave the stage. While the world speculates and wonders, Jack Nicholson seems content. He's lived, loved, lost, and given us everything he had. For decades, he made us laugh, fear, and think. And now, in his final act, he reminds us of something far more powerful, that even legends are human. They too grow old. They too seek peace. If Jack Nicholson's films ever moved you, if his voice, his madness, or his laughter ever stayed with you, leave a comment about your favorite role. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more powerful stories from the golden age of Hollywood.